All right, folks, you all know the importance of a strong supply of qualified, experienced, and well-trained airline pilots has never been more apparent than it is today. You know about the efforts that we had with the Commercial Air Safety Team in 1997 when the number of fatality, the risk was very high, and they knew with the growth of the industry, there was no way that they could let it go because the risk, the number of accidents would have been preposterous. Nobody would have flown. But the interesting thing to note is that while that made great efforts to do aggressive data collection, right, through the SIAS program, Aviation Safety Information Analysis and Sharing Program, we saw the real effect of that be amplified when after a series of 4 accidents, we took a look at ourselves and we created the FOQ rule, right, 2010. 111.216 was the law. Yes, I'm a geek. And I got to tell you, at that moment, with the combination of enhanced training, right, and accommodating for different types of flying, here's what happened to the accident rate. 99.8%, right? And that's why we protect the FOQ, right? So, but as we knew, right, that passengers would return to the skies, and we wanted to be ready, so we knew that was going to happen. And while pilots and other workers were in plentiful supply and more than ready to take off, we said that all along, we're ready. The question so many are asking is why weren't the airlines, why weren't they ready, right? Thanks in part to ALPA's advocacy, that would be your advocacy, Congress provided U.S. airlines with literally billions of dollars to make certain they would be ready to fly as soon as passengers returned. Yet despite this federal government assistance, this taxpayer-funded money, many airlines didn't plan for the recovery very well. In fact, this summer, we saw the results in enormous training backlogs, along with shocking levels of flight delays and cancellations, and all because of poor planning and bad management. I know they hold us to higher standards, so we need to hold them to the same. So, unfortunately, some airline representatives are trying to blame pilots for their own mistakes, to shift the blame, right? Scapegoating. They've resorted to distorting the facts and manipulating data about pilot supply to distract passengers from the real reason behind the summer meltdown. By the way, they've never challenged our data, ever, at all, never. Paul Ryder, where are you? Are you here? Is Paul around somewhere? Paul's been an incredible asset while he's doing his other work at the United MEC, but he's just an expert. There you are, Paul. Just an expert. That man right back there, he is they fear him. They really do. They fear him because he's got the understanding and the numbers to back up what he says, right? But, you know, here's the mistake they made. They underestimated our resolve to expose both the root of the problem and the remedies. So, thanks to you, ALPA continues to prevail as we redefine the narrative and set the record straight regarding pilot supply, all while fighting to preserve our hard-won safety gains over the past decade, and there have been many. Now, as always, our union is stepping up to work with governments and airlines to safely meet the current challenge, just as we did during the pandemic. We always put our best foot forward, but we will not hesitate to hold airlines accountable for their bad business decisions. And we will not surrender the gains we've achieved. And we will not compromise on safety, especially when it comes to life-saving first officer qualification, experience, and training requirements that have reduced passenger fatalities, like I said, 99.8% since they were in place. And let me tell you, they are trying to do that. And to make matters worse, they're trying to push back on safety rules to do it. If it wasn't egregious enough to perpetuate a false narrative or perpetrate a false narrative, to then double down and push back on safety rules, I'm fighting words for the Airline Pilots Association International. So make no mistake, I want you to understand this. the efforts of some to evade and even repeal the safety regulations that I just mentioned, and the life-saving combination of academic and flight training, I also mentioned, that was required of new pilots, is very, very real. They're actively trying to do that as we speak. So if you've been following the strategic plan over the last iterations every 2 years, you know how this union feels about maintaining the FOQ and protecting the FOQ rules. So one airline, in fact, is even attempting to exploit a loophole in the law so that reduced pilot qualification and training requirements apply to some of its small community services instead of the current safety-focused standards. Anybody have an idea who I'm talking about here? I know they don't want me to mention it. SkyWest, right? They won their essential air services contracts by saying that they were a 121 carrier that, as you all know, has a higher standard, right? A higher standard. They want to make them they want to take a couple of seats out of the airplane, make it 135, be able to put a 200-hour, 250-hour pilot in the right seat. You know, I got to tell you that the Airline Pilots Association is already eagerly sharing that information with a lot of communities that they're seeking to serve, and they're not too all thrilled about that, all right? So, I mean, that's what they're willing to do because they don't have a pay structure that can attract pilots. Our pilots are in the driver's seat right now, okay? They're making choices about where they want to work, all right? We said that there would be opportunities come out of COVID, and they're here, right? But we will never, ever buy into this false narrative, and we will never allow them to push back on training. But it gets worse. Another airline has created an internal pilot training program that it claims is equivalent to U.S. military training. How many military pilots we got here? All right, come in. All right, good. Not that many in this crowd this time. Wow. I don't know, Bob. You went on and off the carrier a couple times, right? At night. How you feel about that? I mean, come on. Look, and you know, when you really look at it, I don't think our country and our flying public would be too crazy about the accident rate either, even though, you know, obviously in the military you're pushing the limits, right? Every day you go fly, you're pushing the limits. But the company proposes that its first officers should be allowed to fly with only half the experience required of their peers at that. That's what it would roughly be. And some in the industry are calling for outright repeal of the FOQ rule. You fought so hard to get, right? I mean, this just didn't happen overnight. This has been a long struggle. So, you know, I talked about the 12 airlines that came on. I talked about the growth. I talked about what's going on in the regional world and all the contracts that are going on right now. Did you ever think you would see the day in the Airline Pilots Association? I mean, you know, because let's face it, entry point into this profession is pretty tough through the regionals. But we're trying to make that change. We've made a tremendous change. I mean, I've got, let's see here, Mesa. I'll talk about you again in a little while. I mean, Mesa's at the top of the list with pay rates, not bonuses, pay rates. Is this, you know, the catch-all, do-all? No, this is the beginning. Okay, we're going to build on this. And if this country wants a resilient airline industry and Canada wants an air, it needs to invest in the future of the profession. It's simple. You have to make it a profession. You have to pay it that way. And you can't cut back on safety. So we are using the full force of our union's legal team through legal action, advocacy, and public engagement to make certain these efforts fail. They will fail. We've launched an aggressive multi-platform information campaign to underscore the safety improvements made possible by the airline first officer requirements. In fact, ALPA's paid media outreach on this issue has prompted millions of viewers from the audiences that matter the most. We select our audiences, we target our message. And everyone involved in aviation policy should feel confident that ensuring the United States maintains these life-saving first officer requirements will be and remain the priority of our union as Congress reauthorizes the FAA. There's a person in this room these companies fear, all right? David Weaver, our director of COM. What you see coming out right now in drawing these lines of battle, they do not challenge. A4A did not challenge this. They just said, hey, we should all work together. okay? RAA did challenge it, but the problem is there's certain people, certain groups in RAA that understand the problem and just want to execute on their business plan and have adjusted their contracts to reflect it. But then there's the holdouts, the ones not willing to make the necessary changes to attract new pilots. It's pretty simple. It's not hard, right? If you give pilots a pathway, right, that's reasonable, they will come. I mean, what was it? Which was it? Was it Piedmont which is the one that had over 100% changes in recruiting efforts once they did the contract? I think it was Piedmont, right? 100%, just like that. All those pilots that RAA said weren't out there, they showed up. They showed up. So, you know, but it seems, and here's really, just go, I want to share the mentality, because I talk to a lot of these folks, and, you know, I get along with some of them, but I'm, you know, business-like, and I deliver the message, right? So it seems impossible to me about what I'm about to tell you right now. But especially given this summer's operational meltdowns, all right? And you know, you've seen them, you're living them. If anything, I hear about how your schedules are changing constantly, right? But ALPA is also fighting to make certain that airline CEOs commit that they will not engage in stock buybacks when the prohibition contained in the payroll support program expires at the end of this month. All right? I mean, that just sort of makes sense. Yeah, they can do it, but what kind of message is that going to send, right? So, and you know, and here's another thing, you know, the way some of the airlines have been negotiating, but you know, given the contributions that our pilots have made through the greatest downturn in the history of aviation, remember when you went to work and you didn't even know what the hell COVID was at the time yet? I mean, you walked in there, you weren't sure what you were gonna, you know, what it was, what you were gonna bring home, but you did it, right? You got quarantined in your hotel rooms. You got locked up in China for weeks in a, you know, Chinese medical camps. You did all that, right? But the message that's been delivered, they seem to be negotiating as if that didn't happen. Real short memories, right? We love you, we care about you as employees, but we're going to drag these negotiations out as long as we can, like nothing has changed here. But there's been an inflection point. Airlines need to invest in their workers by bargaining contracts that reflect our contribution to the operation, period. And it's through employees' hard work that the airlines secured the financial stability that caused them to be alive right now. Trust me, I talked to a lot of senators and congressmen. They would not have gotten the money if it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for labor. And we're going to have Liz Schuler, president of the AFL-CIO, come in because she was right there by our side, pushing this. People who don't even know the first thing about airplanes, because we were sharing the information and, you know, connectivity with all who work through the dignity of work. You know, we were able to hit Congress with one voice. Now, in Canada, right, there's more of the same false rhetoric about pilot supply. And ALPA Canada has reached out directly to members of the Parliament and government officials to show our adamant opposition to airlines' request for exemptions to flight and duty time regulations and efforts to hire, fire, and pilots on a claim of inadequate pilot supply. But ALPA is fighting back, including laying out our concerns in a recent letter to key government ministers, but there's a lot of activity going on in this area. Unfortunately, in Canada, there wasn't a similar airline-specific industry relief package as we had with not one, not two, but 3 PSP programs. And I think there's a lot of new pilots that just kind of don't know, like, okay, just assume that we're here, right? But you have no idea the amount of work that went into making that happen. You know, convincing the United States government to give you $63 billion, you know, pretty amazing. Saved hundreds of thousands of jobs, many of which would have been pilots. But, you know, look, the basic bottom line is we have enough airline pilots to meet today's needs. We need even more qualified aviators in the future. And the fact, no one is more committed than ALPA to building a robust and qualified pilot workforce for the future. Our union's goal is to inspire all young people who have the desire to see themselves as pilot, enable them to do that. ALPA is dedicated to creating a diverse and accessible, inclusive profession reflective of our nation's, plural, diversity, while protecting the high level of safety in North American air transportation. No let up on requirements, all right? So, As part of our work, ALPA participates in events such as the annual organization of Black Aerospace Professionals Conference and Professional Asian Pilots Association Aerospace Expo, and the International Women in Aviation Conference, as well as EAA's Air Venture Oshkosh. Bill will talk about some of that, which this year attracted a record turnout of approximately 650,000 people. And Captain Capt, like I said, will detail it. ALPA launched a really cool program called Project Takeoff, which offers activities involving the piloting profession for young passengers at Orlando's International Airport this last August. But during EAA, there's a whole bunch of functions that go on, and your PDG group is just done incredible. The education committee, just unbelievable. And I know you're going to talk about that. So now, our union is taking it a step further. We have, how many LOAs do we have at universities now? 13? 12, 13? 13. 13. We have 13 letters of agreement with various universities, aviation universities, but we're taking it a little step further. And we're visiting students now at a younger age, in those formative years when, they clean slate, don't have any ideas of what may have been imposed on them in terms of limitations, things like that, including my own visit with 100 pre-K and kindergarten students in Northern Virginia earlier this year. You had to see that one. These little ones were just, boom, their eyes were just so big. And, we were, Linda Shotwell from Comm Department set it all up. We went out there on the playground, and in the school rooms and kind of drew runways and and the team from the education committee, just extraordinary. I mean, those kids just came out of there thinking like, yeah, this is something I want to do. But even, as we look to the future, our union is focused on maintaining today's extraordinary level of safety in air transportation, always, first and foremost, right? Scheduled with safety. Safety is, of course, it goes without saying, is paramount for our pilots. The ability to ensure safety starts with experience and training, but it doesn't end there. Thanks to ALPA's Air Safety Organization, led by Captain Bob Fox, our pilot and staff subject matter experts are actively engaged in every aspect of aviation safety, security, pilot assistance, jump seat access, and you'll see them all this week. Now, but just let me give you a few quick examples. One of the greatest challenges to aviation safety is efforts to allow reduced crew, single pilot, or even remotely piloted operations in commercial aviation operations. We know it probably will come to cargo first, right? But it's alive, and it's real. It's the big alligator by the boat right now. I have to tell you that I took a recent visit to Airbus and, soon to be Boeing, but there's a lot of technology underway right now. For this reason, I created the Presidential Committee on Reduced Crew Operations as a central point for our union's wide collaboration on this important topic. And the way the committee works, it considers and conducts its business based on the fundamental principle that two well-trained pilots on the flight deck at all times is integral to the safety of the entire aviation system. Remember, pilot and command, last arbiters of safety, right? And having two pilots on board trained, the redundancy there, led to the safest time period in the history of aviation. We turned the most dangerous form of transportation into the safest form of transportation in humankind, right? I always do the thing, and my wife laughs at me, but we're putting people in metal composite tubes in the lowest stratosphere. We considered a conveyance of saying that. We achieved that level of safety. But with this continued improvement in flying, including international flying, ALPA's remote pilot operations, right? Not remote like as in piloting remote, but I mean like Canada remote, right? That organization, that committee is now a standing committee within our association now. If you remember, I changed it from a president's committee to a standing committee, and it's important in really pursuing very, very important work to enhance the safety standards at diversion and emergency airports and remote operations. Now, I know that many of you fly in those kind of conditions. I have, obviously, from time to time throughout my career, but doing that on a regular basis, that's some pretty challenging flying. That is really some pretty challenging fire. but we're making every effort to ensure that remote airports are adequately prepared to meet the needs of passengers and crew, regardless of the size of the aircraft or the weather conditions that are encountered at that airport. So a quick shift now. Let's go over to security for a second. As more flyers return to the skies, we've also seen a lot of bad behavior, a lot of unruly passenger incidents that are really climbing. ALPA is pulling every lever we can to promote our solution to enhance security for passengers and flight crews. With the FAA's announcement in July of a proposed rule requiring secondary flight deck barriers on newly manufactured passenger airliners, we were gratified that the government had acted on the issue after years of delay, even though it was 2018 when Congress said to make it happen. It took that long. And during that time, how many airplanes actually hit the line without secondary barriers? Several thousand, right? So with the lobbyists and special interests pushing back during that time, as they knew it was going to happen, they shoved as many new airplanes out as they possibly can without these changes. But we're going to continue to urge lawmakers to pass legislation now to require existing fleets to be retrofitted with secondary barriers. Two can play at this game, as well as primary barriers for cargo flights. Cargo have a really unique situation in that sense, because sometimes they have people on board in their cockpits that are not pilots. They are maybe an animal handler, however that's defined, which it isn't, by the way. It could be, we don't know if it's a person that drives the truck or if it's an actually trained animal handler. Just don't know. And by the way, they have sedatives that could take down a large animal. And, now they're all in the cockpit together. So as part of enhancing flight deck security, ALPA is also pushing to strengthen the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program. And thanks in part to ALPA, the House Homeland Security Appropriation Bill increased FFDO program funding by approximately $4.5 million to restart training and establish a full-time recurrent training facility in Atlanta. This is a big deal. There's a big backlog of FFDOs, people that want to contribute. It's the most efficient and largest federal law enforcement group in the country. I don't know if you know that. FFDO is the largest federal law enforcement agency in the country. They spend about $17 a person on it, and if we were to pay them what a normal, entry level would be, it's somewhere $800 to $1 billion worth of value. That's what's brought there. And our people do it for nothing because it's the right thing to do. So this bill that we're working on also contains strong language that requires the Transportation Security Administration to justify to Congress proposed budgets against actual financial needs of the program. Did you hear that? They said, contains strong language that requires the Transportation Security Administration to justify to Congress its proposed budget against actual Aren't you supposed to do that anyway? Do we have to legislate common sense, sometimes? That's really what we have. That's what that is. I mean, you could put together a budget. You'd want to make a budget that can help you achieve your goals, but I guess that doesn't happen. But the congressional spending process right now is still underway, so that $4.5 million is not in the bank right now. In fact, we approached the TSA and encouraged them through some pressure with some friends on the Hill to reallocate some FAMS money, Federal Air Marshal money, approximately $2.2 million to dedicate towards this need. So when Admiral Pekoski, Transportation Security Administrator, comes and speaks at the Air Safety Forum, if you have a question about any of that, stand up and ask him. But he was good enough to, take some of that money out of FAMS and put it towards this effort. I think 1.7 million was the end number that ended up happening because, obviously the overhead and instructors and things like that. So, but it does, hopefully this bill will get through, includes increased appropriation funding for FFDOs to fulfill their critical mission. So now, we're also very focused on improving and implementing known crew member, right? Great program. And obtaining regulated party status. We do not have regulated party status. In other words, we are not in the loop on important information when it first becomes available. Companies are. They consider them to be regulated parties. We are asking that TSA, since you are pilots in command, that you need all the information available and so that therefore we should all be part of that regulated party. He said, you're not an airline, though, was the response. You're not an airline. I said, I didn't know. Was A4A an airline? Because they're on it. They have regulated party status. There was silence. There was silence. That was Marcus's idea. That was really good advice, Marcus. So, you know, just a reluctance, right? We're labor, right? But through, you know, you're the last arbiters of safety. If anybody needs to know about what's happening security-wise, it's you. So, all right, now, let's talk about jump seating for a second. The clear and critical role of jump seating pilots as an additional flight deck security and safety asset is one of the many reasons we're working to champion the goals of our aviation jump seat group, including enhancing ALPA's Flight Finder app, the users of which have conducted more than 1.8 million searches since the program was launched. Now, I don't have to tell you how much I'm into that one, right? I tried to do that when I was first vice president, couldn't get it through. Amazing what you could do when you get to be president, but this thing is so useful to our pilots. Our pilots have to go to work right now, you have to go to work right now, and suffer a myriad of indignities, right? You're just trying to get to work or go home. But after 9/11 and COVID, it's not that easy anymore, right? It just never was really, truly easy, but we felt that finding a way to help alleviate some of that stress was going to be of value, and you could see by the numbers that it's working. And then the great thing is that you can use this ability to contact your line pilots directly with your own messaging, and you could target it. So I hope you do that. Now, cargo committee, right? Our union is furthering its coordinated effort to achieve one level of safety and security across all flight operations. Without getting into the gory details, there's a lot of inequality there, right? From airport rescue firefighting equipment requirements for the days and times that we go into airports, to what I just said about hardened cockpit doors, just everything. 117, you know, or a set of flight time, duty time regulations that are science-based. Some airlines do better than others, right? You know, I know our carrier is fairly proactive. Others aren't. You know, it runs the gamut. But we got to fix it. So we need to help all our pilots. So, as an influential participant in a range of U.S., Canadian, and international government and stakeholder policy and advisory groups, we're advancing the airline pilot perspective on issues ranging from research on Class E and Class C cargo compartment fire suppression limitations, and we're going to have some meetings about that this week, to requiring aircraft rescue and firefighting equipment, like I just talked about, on all cargo aircraft. Now, as good world global citizens, and always interested in safety as well as the global environment, ALPA is the world's largest non-governmental safety organization, is also supporting requirements for next-generation fuels to meet more aviation standards. You sure this isn't your speech? I'm sorry.
Trust me, I'm listening. So
okay. All right. Thank you. I know it's long. I know. But now, through the Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed into law in August, it contains a provision to increase the price parity of sustainable aviation fuels with traditional fossil fuels, a measure in which we have supported to try to get done. So, PPS, pilot peer support. In addition, as ALPA's president, I am making certain that our union is doing more than ever to ensure that pilots are mentally and physically prepared to perform their jobs. This week, we're very proud to host our first ever Pilot Peer Support Symposium. Thank you, Bob. It's really great to see this program go. We'll highlight the work of pilot peer programs, shine a light on pilot wellness, and share information and experiences. They're a very popular program. Because of the caliber and commitment of ALPA's PPS volunteer pilots and staff, the FAA continues to be highly supportive, and the program has become an invaluable demonstration of how our union delivers for our members. And that was recognized. I was on the pilot fitness arc after the German wings, and I got to tell you, we were recognized for the suite of different pilot assistant programs. You know, we had aeromedical, HIM, CIRP, and ProStans, but it was pretty clear there was a piece missing. That scoop ball, you know, because those were all work-related stresses. We created a program now through PPS where, you know, if you're having marital problems, if your kid's sick or aging parents, those kinds of things, there's lots of stresses, you know, that maybe you don't belong in an airplane at that point, but you could talk to somebody in a confidential way and get the help you need. Great program. And it completed the whole circle and was a force multiplier. So, back to bargaining just for a second. You know, collective bargain contracts, I'm not telling you anything here, but which provide enforceable terms of compensation and working conditions and job security, as well as a proactive safety culture, are, of course, the cornerstone of the labor movement. When we came into office here, we said we were going to view everything through the dignity of work. We took on a global, international view, expanded the view just outside here, you know, just not just the US and Canada. But with 15 groups or more in current major bargaining, our union is doubling down on our efforts to demonstrate ALPA pilots' unshakable unity and support for a battle for their fair contracts, commensurate with their contributions. Now, ALPA's Strategic Preparedness and Strike Committee, Wes Reed, where are you, buddy? There's Wes. Okay, there you are. That man's doing a lot of work on this. ALPA's Strategic Preparedness and Strike Committee and staff have assisted many MECs in conducting informational picketing, including a system-wide event that took place on September 1st. Thank you, Wes. That was a great, really, I've been getting feedback from everybody, including the independents, by the way. Now, we're using every opportunity to urge airlines, many of which are in strong financial condition, thanks to the federal aid that we helped them get, to respect and recognize their pilots' sacrifice and hard work that they've earned, past due, payment due, right? That's what I think everybody's, you know, message should be on. It's like, you know, when you get one in the mail, I got those. Payment overdue, you know, please respond by this date or we're going to send it to collections. But it's you know, this is for services rendered after COVID, the way I look at it. You've already done the job, right? So that's my take. So now here's the good news. Our demonstration of unity is creating encouraging results already after the work that you did there, Wes, in various sectors of the industry. It's being noticed everywhere that you all came together in a unified way. And, you know, I mentioned Mesa before, right? Mesa Air Group pilots recently secured industry-leading pay rates with a letter of agreement that reflects the compensation that the company needs to offer to remain competitive and attract and retain qualified and experienced U.S. pilots. It isn't a secret how to do this. And it changed dramatically. We're already starting to see increases in pilots' interest to come, and that's how it works. It is, in my view, as many years as I've been in ALPA, it is really gratifying, especially at Mesa, right? Which really wasn't at the top of the industry, okay? And now, in terms of doing that. And the fact that in the Airline Pilots Association, that has been a difficult area anyway, to see them reach that, achieve that, is really just makes us all feel good up here. But they're not the only ones, right? We're including contracts at Commute Air, Envoy Air, Piedmont Airlines, and PSA. Each of these ALPA representative groups work with their companies to improve compensation, work rules, and job quality for fee-for-departure pilots. Now, when I began my administration, I pledged to support all members, like I said, equally, all the voices, right, together. And we're not mainline or regional, right? We're not US or Canadian. We're not cargo or passengers. We're all ALPA pilots first and foremost. That was the message, right? And together, you know, we've worked to improve tools and provide resources to all ALPA pilots. And thanks to Captain Genovese here, Joseph, thank you, and the financial discipline and strength that he exercised as we were dealing with COVID initially really was the game changer. I'm telling you, really, just to think that we just went through that and came out like this, the strongest in the history of the Airline Pilots Association. And appreciate so much the work on your behalf and also for finance, the finance department. Beth, where's Beth? Is Beth here? Yeah, here she is, way in the back. All right, look, we've launched more than 24 new websites on state-of-the-art content platforms. Members in the United States now have a new in-house portal to purchase and manage their ALPA insurance plans. Moreover, the ALPA app has been updated and to provide members with easy one-step access to ALPA PAC and calls to actions right from their mobile device. This is the key for communicating with our line pilots directly. It's great to communicate with the board of directors. It's really great to communicate with the pilots. So, and speaking of new ALPA members across the airline industry, pilots are recognizing more than ever the value of ALPA representation, beginning from their first days of flying, during every stage of their career, and now throughout retirement. We have an initiative right now that is helping pilots. You know, at first we said, when we came in office, we said, we started a program from recruitment to retirement. Now it's beyond. It's through retirement. Recruitment through retirement. We're going to give them PPS support. We're going to train them. We're going to give them HIMSS support, HIMSS-like support. And we're going to look at more and more ways, because when you could become part of a union, right, it's something special. You're part of ALPA forever. You know, you hit the age of 65 and it's all over. That's it. You're supposed to just hang up your wings and go, and that's not an easy transition for some. So, now look, like I said, we welcomed our 12th pilot group since 2019, the pilots of Breeze, despite, like I said to you, about what they've been doing, right? Management's been really banging away. I just have to say this again, with their anti-union tactics. But here's the key. Our union will not be deterred. I myself have gone through this. I lived through that kind of a thing. I lived through challenges of certification. It's noise. All you have to do is have unity, right? And we'll continue to fight for the rights of Breeze and all our ALPA pilots and prevail against all anti-union conduct. So, but before I close, I'd like to express seriously, very seriously, my sincere appreciation to every member of this executive board for a tremendous 4 years as ALPA president. I know you gave me trust, and with that trust, that profound gift that you gave me, I never took it for granted once, all right? And I'm telling you, you know, this job brings with it a tremendous weight, right? But the key to trust is the accountability part, all right? And I know I tried every day, and we tried every day. I don't know if you've ever seen a team like this before, but when I tell you we are tight, we have been tight since day one. And that's, to me, gentlemen, it's the only way that we would have gone through the worst downturn in the history of aviation and all the challenges that came with it, and achieved all the goals that we tried to achieve with the you know, the strategic plan. So, but from my heart, I want to tell you thank you for all the support. We have endured much together. Like I said, you know, the government shutdown, the MAX grounding, and the global pandemic. Yet, it made us stronger. So I've been honored and privileged to hold this position, work along aside each one of you, and together as we have served this mighty union, and it is mighty. So thank you for your attention. I know it was a little long, but I really wanted to talk to you and tell you everything that was going on. I'm really excited about it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.